Hello, everyone. We'll be getting started in just a few moments. We're just giving everybody time to log on and get settled in. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Coal Creek Sewer Upgrade meeting. This is our second meeting. Today we'll be focusing on work in the Coal Creek natural area. My name is Willow Russell. I will be facilitating today. And on behalf of our entire team, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. We know there's a lot going on in the world and in our community, and we just appreciate your interest and you giving us your time today to learn about this project. Before we dive in to this meeting, I just want to talk a little bit about this virtual space that we're in. And I know for those of you who joined us last week, this will be a little bit of a review, so please bear with us. But we do want to make sure that anyone who's new to this meeting or anyone who is new to Zoom is having the best experience possible. So I'm going to be sharing some information about how to use Zoom, particularly how to use captioning. The Coal Creek area, there are people who are living and working and playing in that area who come from diverse communities. And so we are providing captioning in 7 different languages: English, simplified and traditional Chinese, Korean, Russian, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And in a moment, I will show you how you can access those captions. We also have 2 ASL interpreters with us today, Lori and Sarah. And in a moment, I'll walk you through how to optimize your view of their screens. And then I'll also be walking you through how you can ask questions during the presentation. If at any time you are running into technical issues and you need help, my colleague Will is available by phone. You can call him at 206-922-6271, or you can use the Q&A chat function, which I will show you in a few moments. So first, closed captioning. If you would like to use the closed captioning option, just click on the closed caption icon at the bottom of your screen. And once you do that, you'll get a little window that pops up, and you just need to select Show Subtitles. If you would like to take advantage of the translated captions, just click on the chat box and another window will open for you with a link, and you just need to click that link and follow it to another web page where you can select the language you would like your captions to be in. And please note that this chat feature is one-directional. We can send messages to you, but if you want to send questions or comments to us, you'll need to use the Q&A function, which again, I'll be going over in a moment. In terms of ASL interpretation, if you would like to see Lori and Sarah larger on your screen, you can select the side-by-side mode, which is, you just need to click on the View Options menu at the top of your screen, and you can see here that's what this looks like. So select side-by-side mode, and you'll see, you won't see Will and me, you'll see Lori and Sarah here in this location. These images are just placeholders. And if you would like to see them larger, you can just slide this gray bar out to the left, and that will enlarge the interpreter screens so that you can see them more easily along with the presentation. One of the most important things that we want to do today is get your questions answered. So I would definitely want to walk you through this. You will notice that you are in listen mode right now, so meaning you're muted, but you can type any questions that you have using the Q&A icon here. Again, if you just click on this icon, a window will open up and you can type a question and we'll be tracking those. We will answer as many questions as we can live today, but if we don't get to your question, or if it's very technical or detailed and we need to follow up afterwards, we will answer every question in the meeting summary, which we'll be posting online. Now with that, I would like to introduce today's presenters. We have Liz Matson, the project manager from King County, Jacob Shepard, the environmental planner from King County, and Monica Vandeveren, who is with Community Services at King County. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass the virtual mic and laser pointer to Liz Matson.
Hello, this is Liz Matson. I am King County's project manager for the Coal Creek Sewer Upgrade, the project that we'll be discussing today. So today's meeting is the second of 2 webinars we are hosting about the Coal Creek Sewer Upgrade project. This is a very large project with a lot of different elements that we know people are going to have questions about. So there are going to be opportunities coming up for you to provide input, and our team wants to make sure you have the information you need to understand this project and participate. Because this is such a challenging time to do project outreach, we're creating multiple ways for the community to get up-to-date information, ask questions, and get feedback. Monica will talk later at the end of this presentation about upcoming outreach opportunities. Back on June 17th, we focused more on construction and trailhead restoration. Today, we will go into more detail on how work in the natural area. We're going to be just talking about reducing impacts, how we will protect the environment during construction, and how we will restore and maintain the areas affected by the project construction. So next, I'm going to go over some of the project context for people who weren't at the last meeting and get you familiar a little bit with King County's regional wastewater treatment system. So first, I would like to introduce you to King County Wastewater Treatment Division. You'll probably hear me call it WTD for short. So on this map here, we have north, this is Snohomish County here, and south, this is Pierce County here. So King County WTD is a regional wastewater treatment provider, and this map shows the area that WTD serves. We provide regional wastewater treatment to 17 cities and 17 sewer districts. We operate pump stations and pipes that get the wastewater from your area to a regional treatment plant. The colored shapes you see that send wastewater to one of these 3 regional treatment plants we operate. So this green area goes to West Point, this teal area goes to the Brightwater treatment plant, and this purplish area goes to the South treatment plant. And this is where your wastewater goes. So, but overall, we treat on average about 180 millions of gallons of wastewater a day, but that number can go much higher when it rains. So it can be really hard to imagine a large number like 180 million. So it might help to get you an idea of how much wastewater is treated to imagine 3,600,000 bathtubs and the water that it would take to fill those bathtubs, if you can even imagine that many. So here is a picture of South Treatment Plant in Renton, where your wastewater gets treated. Because your city collects your wastewater, you may not have known that King County provides the wastewater treatment. Water that you use at home, school, or businesses travel through your small side sewer pipe and go to the City of Bellevue sewer system. Bellevue's sewer system is kind of like a system of city streets, and King County's system is like the highway where all of the streets lead to. And these highway pipes take the wastewater to the treatment plants and around the region. So this figure here shows the population growth in the Bellevue area. As you probably know, there's been a lot of development in the Bellevue area, adding more houses and businesses that are sending flows to the sewer system. You can see that Bellevue's population really begins to climb around 1940 after the Lake Washington floating bridge opens, and the Bellevue and Newcastle areas are so much more easily accessible to Seattleites. And then growth continues rapidly in the 1960s, and you can see is still climbing today. So King County really needs to do this project because the pipe doesn't have enough capacity to support this growing area into the future. We at the county monitor both the flows in the pipe and the population growth, and we start projects like these when we see that the pipe might not be big enough in the future to meet the needs of the community. Right now, this part of the Coal Creek sewer doesn't have enough capacity to meet King County pipe size standards. And there's currently a 50% probability that the pipe could overflow to the creek in any given year, which is really something we don't want to happen. So at the last meeting, on the 17th, we went over the construction of this project in more detail. And I'm just going to give you a quick overview to provide you some context for Jacob's discussion of the natural area. And if you want to learn more about the specifics of the construction phase, please go back and watch the recorded webinar. So just to reiterate, this is a really big project. We're going to be installing over 10,000 feet of new pipe, which is almost 2 miles. So we have this dotted red line here that you can see that travels up, and that's the existing pipe that will be replaced. The black line is the proposed new pipe that we will be installing. And we're going to be installing it with trenchless technology. There are also these other little black lines that connect with the main black line. And these are pipes, and they show the connections from the new pipe, the new large pipe, to Bellevue sewer. And even though the goal is to remove the active sewer from the natural area, there is still a lot of work that has to happen in the natural area as part of this project. And we are waiting for the slide to switch.
Liz, we're maybe running into a little technical issue. So let me
Yeah.
just,
You want to take back control?
I'm gonna take back control for a moment and see if I can get this sorted out.
I think you can just keep control and follow along.
Okay, let me just make sure that, okay.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure.
So what you're looking at here is a profile of the new Coal Creek trunk pipe underground. The green area is the land, and the jagged line is the shape of the land surface or the topography. Those little dark elements on top are little trees and houses to kind of give you some scale and to picture how deep the pipe is. So the majority of the new pipe is going to be installed using what we call trenchless construction. And this type of construction reduces impacts to the surface, but it will still disturb the surface, especially at the entry pit and the exit pit. Trenchless underground construction works by where the contractor will build an entry pit at one end. In this case, will be near the trailhead in the south. And then a tunneling machine will be launched from that pit. The pipe segments will be fed into the pit, and then dirt will come out. The contractor will also have to build an exit pit at the other end, which is on the north end in this project. And this is a smaller pit that will be used to retrieve the machine. So next slide. So while most of the pipe is going to be installed using trenchless construction, that's this kind of long orange piece here, there are some sections that are going to be installed using open trenching. And that's where we dig from the surface. So an open trenching is probably the construction method you're most familiar with, where you see a big hole dug in the ground. This method clearly has more impacts at the surface. So we're going to be using open trenching in some areas because either the pipe is too shallow or we were already causing impacts to the surface. And so these areas that are circled in black are some of the areas that we're going to be having some open trenching. So next slide. So lastly, here is the current schedule for the sewer upgrade project. We are currently in final design at a stage that we call 60% design. And so because this project is located in a really sensitive area, both permitting and environmental review for this project are going to be very complex. And design is not going to be completed until after we receive all of the project permits. After design is complete, there's going to be a period where the contract goes out to bid. And once that contract is awarded, construction can begin. We still have a couple years before construction begins. And once it starts, which we expect in late 2022 or early 2023 approximately, it'll take about 4 years from start to finish. This summer and fall of 2020, permitting and environmental review will be underway for the upgrade project. And we'll let people know when there are opportunities to comment. As you can see from this schedule, the community outreach portion is going to go on throughout the entire project, and Monica will be talking more about how you can get the information you need to participate. So I'm going to turn the presentation over now to Jacob Shepard, who's going to walk through working in the natural area.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jacob Shepard. I'm the environmental planner for this project. What that means is I am responsible for running the environmental review and permitting processes for a big complicated wastewater infrastructure project such as the Coal Creek trunk upgrade. So what I'm going to do is run through first the existing conditions today with King County's pipe in the natural area. Then I'm going to talk about how we're going to be protecting the Coal Creek natural area as we build our project. And then I'm going to talk about how we're going to restore the impacts that we caused and how we're going to leave the area better than we found it to the extent that we're able. So before I move into the slides, I just want to acknowledge that the Coal Creek natural area is really a jewel of Bellevue. It's a fantastic natural area. It's home to multiple species of salmon. It's home to a ton of wildlife that rely on the forests around Coal Creek. And it's home to a wonderful network of trails. And our project is going to be occurring within this wonderful natural area. That gives us a lot of responsibility to make sure that we keep our impacts down as much as possible. So Liz talked a little bit about where we are today. The existing Coal Creek trunk sewer you can see in red on the image in the aerial view of the screen. So as you can see, that red pipe weaves its way down the valley that Coal Creek is in. It crosses the creek a number of times, and it ultimately connects near the north end of the project to the county's east side interceptor, taking the flow in that pipe down to South Treatment Plant in Renton. You can just barely see that line right there. That's the ESI, as we call it. So in the 60s and 70s, King County Metro built this sewer pipe as part of a regional effort to provide better wastewater treatment for the urban growth area in King County. One thing that I want you to notice is the amount of development around Coal Creek today. This image was taken probably just a few years ago. And recall that when this sewer pipe was first put into place, much of that development hadn't occurred yet. In other words, what we were looking at in the 60s and 70s was a much more forested landscape. So what we see on this picture here is the north segment of the Coal Creek trunk. There's a south segment of the trunk as well. That segment is not under the same capacity constraints as the north segment, and this project will not be upgrading that section. We're going to be focusing on the northern segment. So we built that pipe in the 60s and 70s in a spot that made a lot of sense to the engineers of the time. Water flows by gravity, and the more we were able to use gravity, the less we had to spend on pumps and maintenance and on and on. So when this was built, it seemed like a great place. However, as the decades have gone by, it's become increasingly clear that there are some issues with putting a sewer pipe in the valley of a stream. As you can see in these photos, these photos are evidence of a couple out of at least 4 events that we know of over the past decades in which the stream, the stream has jumped its banks and scoured out one or both sides of the stream bank and exposed or nearly exposed that active sewer pipe in the process. This is a really big problem. The sewer pipe is built to be buried under the ground and is not built to withstand the forces of an active stream pushing sediment and boulders and that sort of thing. And another thing thing to note, and I called it out on the previous slide, is that over the decades that this pipe has been in service, the development on either side of the valley has led to a lot more water entering the creek during rain events. So rainwater that used to soak into the ground in the forested land above the creek now just runs off and goes straight down into the stream. And so a situation in which a winter storm might raise the level of the creek 6 inches now raises it much more quickly, and in some cases much deeper. And so as time has gone on, as development has increased, this flashiness, as we call it, has increased in Coal Creek, which threatens our pipe even more. So we even today have an example of this ongoing problem of the pipe being at risk of the active pipe being at risk from the active creek. In 2019, in the winter of just this last winter, there was a major storm around December 20th. And when our crews visited the facility on Coal Creek, this is right near the upper West Trailhead, just uphill from Forest Drive, they noted that one of our maintenance hole structures, one of these access points for the pipe, was now in the main channel of the stream. And as a result, we, before this large project that we're talking about gets started, are actually going to need to do a small temporary fix to keep this maintenance hole structure protected from future flooding events. What it's going to look like is a couple weeks of work. That is time in which we may need to close some or all of the parking lot at the upper West Trailhead, and we will need to close a portion of the Coal Creek Trail. What we're going to be doing is installing a few small structures just upstream of that maintenance hole, in which we're going to kind of coax the stream around the structure so that it doesn't continue to erode that bank. The SEPA process, the State Environmental Policy Act process, the environmental review process for this small project is actually right now in a public comment period. You can visit the project's website for more information, and you can provide comments up until June 29th. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that spot and what the ultimate goals are for the large project in a few slides. So now I am going to talk about the large project.
Hey, Jacob.
Yes.
I'm sorry, you're kind of going in and out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know if, I'm just wondering, maybe try, I'm not sure if just like kind of staying very still, maybe that's affecting it. And if it continues, I'm going to let you know, and maybe we can try without your headset again and see if that gives us a clearer connection.
Sure, my apologies. I will try to stay very still here in my office.
Oh, no, Jacob, it's still continuing to do that. Can you try unplugging your headset and see if we can get a better connection?
Yes, I can. Just one moment.
Thank you for bearing with us, everyone. This will just be a moment.
And we're back to this one. Can you try this one? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Jacob. Yeah, let's
Great.
try this for a little bit and see how that goes.
You bet. All right. Yeah, keep me posted. Thanks, Willow. Apologies, everyone. Okay, so Liz gave an overview of the project, and you saw a version of this slide. Liz talked to you about the fact that most of the above ground impacts are going to be occurring at the points where we need to enter or exit our trenchless, the trenchless areas of the pipe installation. You see the exit pit for our trenchless installation about here. Entry and exit pits for another trenchless section of the project right here. And then the main entry pit right here. What I'm going to do is walk through just kind of the basics of the activities that we are going to be doing in each of these areas. We're going to start at the upper end of the project by the Upper West Trailhead. And what you can see here is
Jacob, I'm so sorry. I'm going to interrupt you one more time. I'm so sorry. You are still continuing to break up. So I'm wondering, do you have a phone handy? I'm wondering if you can call into the meeting. I'm not sure if that will work. Let me just check with our tech crew. I just want to make sure everyone can hear you. And again, thank you everyone for being so patient. Just give us 1 second while we troubleshoot this. Ray, are you available at the moment? Do you think, could we have Jacob call in as a panelist?
It's a good question. Actually, Jacob, if you click in the bottom left where it says, probably says mute your audio, there's an arrow there. There's an option to switch to phone audio.
I wonder if that's feasible.
Jacob, if you were to call in, and Ray, maybe this will work. If you use the invitation link to be a panelist, and you called in, or sorry, you clicked on that link on your phone instead, and had a headset for your phone, that might be a clearer connection. If the option that Ray just gave you doesn't work.
Right.
So Will, while we're waiting, this is Monica. I'm wondering if any of our audience have any questions. You can put them in the Q&A, and we can see if there's anything that Jacob may cover a lot of what you're going to ask, but we can definitely look at what your questions are and see if there's something that he's not going to cover so that he can include it.
That's a great idea, Monica. Thank you. If anyone has any questions, please go ahead and use that Q&A box.
So one of the things, this is Monica, one of the things I think I can do, or Ron, if you want to step in and just kind of talk about the construction at the Upper West Trailhead. That's something that doesn't require a huge amount of environmental expertise.
Sure. I can do that, Monica, if you like.
Okay, that'd be great. And if you can kind of emphasize, you obviously are working on designing this retaining wall and working on the forest and stream restoration aspect. So if you can start walking through that while Jacob's getting reconnected, that would be great.
Okay. So I will, I'll take over this for just a little bit while Jacob investigates the technical capabilities of the system. So this is the entry pit here. If you follow my mouse on the screen, the little faux laser pointer. So that's where we'll be launching the tunneling operation. And this is where there'll be the greatest amount of disruption right in this area, which is the upper West Trailhead parking lot. So right upstream of that, where this kind of yellow line is a line that we'll be building up the existing trail, because the existing pipeline goes on the other side of the creek here, and we'll be replacing that with a larger pipe on this side of the trail. And that's a very tight construction area, so we will be building a short retaining wall right up near the end of that, right around in here. So that'll help us widen the area out, and so that we can get up there. The idea is to minimize impact on the natural area here as much as possible. We feel that we can do that with a minimal amount of free removal because the trail's already there. There will be some disruption where we're putting the retaining wall in. And then also we're doing some creek restoration work here that is in order to improve the creek habitat and also to provide some protection for the pipeline and the trail. And this is very close to the area that Jacob showed earlier, where we're getting a lot of creek erosion in years past. In fact, there's an existing project that's going on, what's being designed right now that hopefully will be built this summer to protect an existing manhole that's there. And I suspect that's a slide that Jacob will talk about later as well. So there is, so this section in yellow up here is all open cut pipeline, which means it's a contractor will dig a trench, put a pipe in, and then backfill it. So it's not tunneled here, but the footprint for disruption is fairly limited. This other section right here that's outside of largely the natural area is connection to the existing south trunk that remains in place that Jacob talked about.
And Ron, I think we have Jacob back.
Okay, well, I'll stop talking and he can fill in the gaps then.
I will certainly give it a try. If you guys can let me know if you can hear me.
Yeah, let me give up control here. Okay, should be, I've given up control, Willow.
Wonderful, thank you, Ron. All right, Jacob,
Great,
you're
thanks.
on. Thank you for
Wonderful.
troubleshooting
And it
with
looks
us.
like, well, and thank you to everybody for bearing with us. So let's move on down to the next area, the next project area. This is the central part of the project, and here we have 2 pits for a segment of pipe that needs to be installed with another trenchless technology called microtunneling. And this piece of the project is intended to collect flow from the local Bellevue sewers in this area. This new pipe is going to be deep and at a totally different location than the existing pipe, because of course the existing pipe will be is in the stream valley down here. So we need to do a bunch of additional connections to make sure that we still are able to collect the local wastewater flow. In this area, we are going to be more or less on the side of the Coal Creek Parkway, as well as in the road for a short segment of the pipe connections that we need to make. There's going to be some tree removal here with tree replacement when the project is done. There is also going to be some grading change in the areas of the entry and exit pits. And of course, unfortunately, there will be some traffic impacts from time to time as we work to get this piece of the project installed. Then moving downhill to the north end of the project area. Again, this is where the existing pipe flows into the ESI, and our new pipe will connect to the ESI as well. If you see where my pointer is right there. So first thing here is the exit pit for the trenchless portion of the project, and some open cut, open trenching from that point along this yellow line until we get to the ESI. It's important to note that about half of this open cut will be on an existing access road in the area. We will need to build a temporary access road from this portion, about where my pointer is. And all of this will be restored, and I'll talk more about that in a few slides. This is all going to be work that's off of the road, with the exception of some truck traffic in and out of the access road right here. So traffic impacts will be comparatively small. There will be temporary environmental impacts in this area, and I'll talk about restoration in a few slides here. So as I said at the beginning of my portion of this presentation, I am the county lead for environmental review and applying for environmental permits. As a big complicated project that touches waters of the United States and touches wetlands and has some temporary environmental impacts, there is quite a complicated web of permits and processes that we are going to be navigating as part of the project. The first one that you may become aware of is environmental review under SEPA. As I mentioned a few slides back, that's the same process that we're undergoing at this very moment for the small temporary protection project for the maintenance hole up by the upper West Trailhead. The SEPA process for this project, for the large project, will more likely than not happen in the latter half of the summer or possibly early fall. There's also a number of federal, state, and local permits. And all of those permits will be included in the construction contract. And as I talk about how we protect the environment in the slides to follow, and as I talk about how we are going to be restoring the environment after the project is done, the overlay for all of that is that there's strict regulatory controls from a number of different places on all of the work that we as the county do for this project. So I'm going to move into some more specific, slightly more specific on different ways that we're going to be protecting the natural area during construction. We're going to be focusing on protecting water quality and protecting trees. We're going to be talking about protecting the stream and the animals that live in the stream. And we're going to talk a little bit about noise and light control. So protecting water quality is something that we take very seriously. We are a clean water utility, and we want our projects to walk that walk as well. And all big construction projects are subject to very stringent water quality protection. Western Washington is particularly strong for this in a lot of ways. What you see on this slide is some bullet points of the general types of water quality protection and best management practices, or BMPs, that we'll be implementing as part of this project. First, we're going to be defining our work areas very strictly so that we do not get, so we don't get too close to the stream, we don't get too close to wetlands that we don't need to impact. And the contractor and the agencies all have a mutual understanding as to where work will be allowed. We, within the work area, are going to be preventing sediment and erosion, other types of erosion from trickling out of the project area and affecting nearby wetlands and streams. We're going to be very careful to prevent spills, and we're going to make sure that we have the ability to clean up any spills that do happen immediately, and removing waste materials from the site promptly as the project continues. So I mentioned sediment control on the last slide, and just sort of as a side note, one of the things that is going to be happening in the natural area for the duration of the project is the City of Bellevue's annual maintenance of their sediment facilities. The photo that you see here is the city removing sediment from that facility. This is an activity that's most likely going to be happening on an annual basis and will continue to happen as the project moves, as the county's project moves forward. Something that the City of Bellevue will always be able to do at the times when they need to do it. So how are we going to be protecting trees in the forest in which we're working? So as you imagine, this type of construction work will require the removal of some trees that are within our project work area, and also trees that are adjacent to the work area whose root structures might be impacted negatively by a trench going right by them. Those are the types of trees that may need to be removed as part of the project. All of the other trees in the vicinity of this project throughout all of the work areas are going to be protected. And I will also talk about some of the ways that we're going to be, some of the goals that we have in restoring the forest when we're done with this project in a few slides here. For the trees that are not directly in the work area, the City of Bellevue does, in my opinion, a fantastic job of requiring all development to protect trees whenever it's possible. Well, the drawing that you see here is sort of a stylized drawing of what the tree protection zone would look like. You can see the drip line on either side of the tree's canopy, and then you can see an area that extends, in this case, well beyond the drip line to protect not just the tree, but the roots underground. And so for all of the trees that are adjacent to the work area, but not right in the way, we're going to be installing tree protection fencing, and that's fencing that's going to be up for the entirety of the project. So how are we going to protect the stream? The first element, kind of the main element of protection during construction for the stream is the fish life in the stream. Like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, Coal Creek is home to a number of salmon species as well as other fish, including fish that are federally protected under the Endangered Species Act. The regulatory agencies apply in-water work windows in which folks like King County who need to do a construction project must do any work that touches the water in these windows, which have been established in times during the fishes, during salmon and other fish reproductive seasonal cycles, where there will be it'll be the least likely to have impacts to the fish in the stream. So this project will be subject to in-water work windows as established by the regulatory agencies. For the areas where we will need to do some work in the water per se, we will also be excluding fish from the work area, both upstream and downstream. In most of the cases in this project, we will be working in the dry, as we say. We'll be putting some kind of cofferdam or something to prevent water from entering the work area. What we'll also be doing is having trained biologists on site with nets to prevent fish from entering the work area. And that's the type of work that the biologists are going to be on site for the entirety of the in-water work. And so what we want to be able to do is make sure that any fish that are in the area don't enter our work area on accident. And again, regulatory agencies have pretty strict guidelines on this, as does the City of Bellevue. The erosion control element is obviously also important in water work, and all of our erosion control BMPs, which I talked about on the water quality slide, will also protect the stream more generally. The final thing that I wanted to touch on is that the City of Bellevue is very vigilant right now in trying to protect waterways from invasive species, in particular the New Zealand mud snail, which has been spotted in a lot of waterways in the Puget Sound area. And our contractor, all of the workers who are going to be working in the vicinity of this project will be required to do some pretty diligent decontamination protocols to make sure that we're not bringing in any New Zealand mud snails or any other ickies that are not already in Coal Creek. So this is a large construction project. That means there will be some noise and there will be some lights that need to be used, especially in the winter season when there's not very much light in the sky. But we are going to, at every opportunity we can, make sure that sound doesn't travel beyond the construction work area, that we meet all of the local noise codes and regulations, and that we make sure that light, especially if we need to light up areas during the short days of winter, doesn't escape not only just the construction area to disturb nearby neighbors, but also for the purposes of the wildlife that rely on the natural area and will still be there even as we build the project. So specifically, some specific things that we're going to be doing for protecting wetlands in the project area, along with the stream that we're going to be working near, and in some cases in. We will have to be working near and in wetlands in some areas in the project. Again, defining the work areas clearly is one of the best tools that we have. Protecting the wetlands from sedimentation and erosion and toxins. Protecting the trees that are in the wetland is very important. And something that's unique about wetlands is their soils. And our project is going to be doing everything that we can to make sure that we do not overly compact the soils and that we leave the soils as intact as we can, so that when we leave, those soils can continue to clean water and soak up rainwater like a sponge, which is one of the things that we sometimes take for granted about wetlands, but wetlands provide a great service. And then finally, just as a general control for making sure that we protect the environment, I want to just reiterate from any presentation that the county has done on this project or others. We have a team of professional construction inspectors who will be on site at all times, ensuring that King County's contractor follows all of the regulations, all of the constraints in the contract, and our eyes will be on the ground at all times. In addition, at all times during construction, our community relations staff, Monica Vanderveeren, who'll be talking to you next, will be available to answer questions. And if you have any concerns during construction, we pride ourselves on providing as good support as we can throughout all elements of construction of these big projects. Now we get to move on to what I find to be the more exciting stuff, restoring the impacts that we have caused and enhancing the areas in the natural area. So as we've alluded to, we have to strike a balance between the various needs in the natural area and the vicinity. The stream and the habitat around the stream and the forest land is of paramount importance. At the same time, so many people look to Coal Creek for recreational opportunities, and the needs of people who are recreating in the natural area need to be taken into account. And in addition, for the small pieces of the project in which there will continue to be an active sewer pipe in the natural area, and I'm talking specifically about this short segment of pipe that's required in order to collect flows from existing pipes, and at the north end, the downstream end of the project, this short stretch of pipe that connects into the east side interceptor. We need to make sure that that pipe is well protected from the stream, future movements of the stream. What we want to do is avoid as much as possible the type of scenario that we saw in some of those earlier slides of the existing pipe being exposed. So the first area I want to talk about in terms of this idea of balancing multiple needs is the Upper West Trailhead. And that was the southern end of the project, as you saw in that previous slide. What we will have here at the end of the project is a trail, a stream, and a pipe that all need to interact in relative harmony. Where we're going to be putting the new pipe, it will be sort of somewhat pinched against a steep valley wall. Directly on top of that will be the restored trail, which will be enhanced for access. It will be ADA accessible once we are done with it. So we have a pipe, we have a trail, and then right adjacent to it is the stream. And in the old days, I would say, engineers might have just built a retaining wall, what we call hard bank stabilization, so that the stream could never start going up onto the bank in which the pipe is buried. We now, in designing these projects, recognize that hard stabilization, like boulders, like a big retaining wall in the stream, is really a lost opportunity for habitat enhancement. And so this project is going to kind of thread this needle of building a better trail, putting in a pipe that, while it's in the natural area, does not cross the stream at any locations. And just for context, in this area of the Upper West Trailhead, the existing pipe and the associated local City of Bellevue sewers cross the pipe, I believe, or cross the stream, I believe, 4 times. So we will be removing all 4 of those active sewer crossings in this area. And we will have a stream that will be able to meander within limits. We're going to be using soft bank stabilization, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit more detail on the next slide. And we will be creating additional habitat in this area for the salmon that use this stream. So the new trail, the enhanced trail aside, what are we going to be doing in the stream itself? What we're going to be doing in this area once we're done. So first and foremost, in the area of the Upper West Trailhead, we're going to be physically removing the existing pipe out of the stream. And that's a couple of crossings, as well as the pipe going adjacent to the stream. All of the areas where the pipe is no longer in service in this area of the Upper West Trailhead, we're going to be removing as part of the project, and where we're already digging in particular. We are going to be leaving this area with additional back channel and side channel habitat, which provides refuge for juvenile fish. We're going to be putting in more gravels that are appropriate for spawning fish. We're going to be installing native vegetation that overhangs the stream, and even on the bank that we need to provide some soft stabilization because the pipe and the trail are right next to it. We're going to be putting in overhanging vegetation, large woody material that provides habitat complexity for the fish and all of the little invertebrates that are so important to this stream. So when we leave the Upper West Trailhead at the end of the project, there will be a real stream restoration project that's been installed that's going to be able to coexist with the remainder of this active sewer pipe and an enhanced trail. So I had talked about tree replacement a bit, and I want to say I think we are as curious as you might be about the numbers of trees that we will need to remove and how many trees we will be planting in their place. And unfortunately, we are still not quite at the level in design where we are able to start giving numbers. I can say that the regulatory agencies, the City of Bellevue, as well as state and federal environmental regulators, take tree protection and tree replacement very seriously. What I can say as well is that we have some very clear goals in our tree replacement strategy. Our goals are to jumpstart the forest around the Coal Creek natural area toward a more resilient direction. Right now, there's a great tree canopy there, but it's a lot of deciduous trees, a lot of trees that lose their leaves at the end of the fall. And those trees are also not particularly long-lived. What we are going to be aiming for in all the areas that we can is to plant long-lived evergreen trees that provide habitat and shade all year long and can live hundreds of years. It's the type of ecosystem that used to exist in this area in the times before we cut a whole bunch of trees down. And we have an opportunity here to really give the ecosystem, the forest ecosystem, a little bit of a jump start. With that restoration approach comes the need to restore the understory as well, the plants underneath the canopy. And again, we're going to be trying to aim for increasing the resilience of this ecosystem. So in this case, that means planting native plants that can take over the ground cover and not allow plants such as ivy and blackberry and other non-native invasive species from establishing and taking hold. A diverse collection of native plants in the understory is going to provide better habitat, more habitat complexity in the long run. And so that's what we're aiming for, again, to make this forest more resilient when we're done. So the wetland impacts that we have in the project are going to happen in a couple of different spots. And what we have, again, is a pretty great opportunity to restore and enhance and expand the wetland complexes associated with Coal Creek. In particular, at the north end of the project, the downstream end of the project, right now, the existing conditions are that there are some wetlands there. There are some uplands there, so non-wetland areas. There's a lot of deciduous trees, short-lived deciduous trees, and there are a lot of invasive species. In coordination with the regulatory agencies who strictly regulate wetlands, we are developing a habitat enhancement plan, a mitigation plan for this area, for the area of the northern part of the project, essentially from the Woodsong condominiums down to almost I-405, where when we are done with this project, we will have restored, enhanced, and even created new wetlands to make essentially a wetland complex at this north end of the project. So that, in combination with some recent stream restoration projects that Sound Transit accomplished in this area, we are going to leave the north end of the project sort of a fantastically restored wetland ecosystem, or at least that's the aim at the moment. And just for reference, again, this area here, where there will be a temporary access road, that road will be removed, and most of this area will be part of a restoration project associated with the Coal Creek Sewer upgrade project. So all of the restoration elements that I've been talking about are going to be subject to a monitoring period. The agencies always require this for restoration, mitigation projects. We don't know the exact period of time under which we will be monitoring, but we are currently proposing between 5 and 10 years of monitoring, depending on where in the project and the type of restoration that we're installing. The King County Wastewater Treatment has a crew, a full-time crew of mitigation and monitoring specialists who will be assigned to this project for the entirety of the monitoring period. And they will make sure that when they leave it, all of those plants and structures are installed and thriving. So now I will hand control over to Monica to round us out for the night. Thank you again for bearing with me with my audio issues. Appreciate it.
So Willow, I might have you just drive so that we don't go through any technical glitches for our
Got it.
Very patient audience. Thank you. So I don't have a whole lot of slides because Jacob did a great job of describing how we're going to restore the area, but I am going to talk about some of the community elements of restoration, and then I'll talk through how we're going to do outreach. And hopefully I hit everybody's questions from the last time about how outreach occurs. Willow, next one. And can you hear me? Can everybody hear me okay?
I can hear you great, Monica.
Super. So as Jacob said, we're really balancing a lot of different uses in this area. So it's obviously a very heavy recreational use. We have schools that come in. We've actually provided stream biologists to work with Pacific Science Center. They get classes that come in. So we really want to make sure when we restore, we're not only restoring to what we had as a new trailhead in 2015, but that we're bringing it back to meet current accessibility standards, and then to leave behind elements that will actually benefit the community for a long period of time. So just so everybody knows, we've been working with the City of Bellevue Parks Department for a couple of years and talking about ways that during this project, we can leave things behind that are kind of a legacy as we restore. And next, sorry, I was trying to advance the slide and forgot I didn't have control. Okay, so what I discussed last time is this trailhead was a dirt trailhead, and then it got restored to this lovely trailhead with signage, some seating, and it's paved, it's got green stormwater infrastructure, so really a nice trailhead. So we're going to put back everything that's there, but what we really want to do is improve both the accessibility and the education for the area. So the city's very enthusiastic about getting some signage in that will help people really embrace and become stewards of the creek. Jacob showed you that there's a lot of people living above the creek that influence the creek with runoff. I've had a couple of residents call me about potential for getting a rain garden program started. So people obviously are very dedicated to making sure that the creek is protected, but also the users of the area. If you are a frequent trail user, you may have seen the little dog poop bags that are out there. So King County's been working with Bellevue to identify ways that we can actually do some education to help both visitors to the area and residents living nearby actually protect the creek and then really to enjoy it. We are working with them, as I mentioned the last time, to revise some of their signage so that it's more accessible and more interactive. The other thing that we're looking at is leaving online content as sort of a guide, with some natural history, information about restoration and wildlife, and then also making sure that it's translated and it's accessible for people who have disabilities. They may be blind. As you see, we have an ASL interpreter. We may leave interpreted video behind for people who need access to information that way. So we're looking at a number of options where after we restore this trailhead, we can create a much more enriched area for people to really enjoy it. And we're definitely open to ideas if people have them. Oh, next, sorry, I keep going for my mouse. So obviously this is an extraordinarily challenging time to work with you. The tech issues will show you how challenging it is. We're used to gathering together at events, in living rooms, at community meetings over a cup of coffee or tea, and just talking through this. So we're trying to answer your questions through a Q&A. And this is really not our favored method of interacting with you, but we really want to make sure that the community has an opportunity to interact as much as possible, to be informed, to have your questions and concerns addressed. So I'm going to say we're answering questions during this. Our conversation is not over. So you can always get a hold of us by email. We're glad to talk by phone. We can host remote meetings, whatever we need to do to work with you during a time that we're actually trying to protect people's health in more ways than one. Next. So you can actually really help us to provide service to you. That is our job as community services, is to provide service to our communities. So definitely fill out the post-meeting survey that you'll get sent. Contact us anytime. I am working remotely from home, but you can get hold of me anytime, and let me know what your questions are, your thoughts, and then let us know if you are with a community group or organization, and if you want us to brief you remotely. At some point, we will get a vaccine and we'll all get back together again, but we will find a way to work with you in the meantime. We also want everybody to know that we have both language interpreters available, and obviously we have sign language interpreters. So we've already been contacted to provide a language interpreter, and that works swimmingly well to get the residents' question answered. So we want people to know that we're trying to create as many options. Just let us know what you need to work with you. Next. And you can definitely check our web. We always pile everything on our web. We'll have meeting summaries, videos, everything you need to stay up to date. Any technical documents we issue will be there. You'll see notice of environmental review. As Jacob mentioned, the temporary project is under environmental review right now. You can find a link on our website. We will be mailing out newsletters again. We just mailed one out, and providing electronic updates. We have virtual meetings like this, not our favorite, but we're going to do them. And online open house will be available for a month this summer. So you'll be able to go through, ask questions, get answers. If you need more details, better maps, let us know. We're willing to work with you however you need. When we get to construction, what will happen is before construction, we'll have a pre-construction meeting. So we'll have a contractor on board, we'll have an idea what their plan is, and then we will host pre-construction events to talk about how the work's gonna go. This is a 4-year construction project, so things will change. The community services team will have a 24/7 hotline that you can call. Most people actually have me on speed dial during projects, and then Annie Pfeiffer, who's on this project, she's also been on speed dial for people. So you'll have ways to get a hold of us around the clock to ask questions, report concerns, and then we'll also be meeting up with you during construction. So you will not be left alone during construction, and you don't have to wait to call us. You will hear from us a lot, especially when there are traffic impacts. You can sign up for text alerts, and we'll let you know what's going on with the traffic during construction. So we're with you until we're completely done and restored, and then you'll still be able to contact us afterward if you have any concerns or questions about restoration. Next. And that is it for me. I did do some more discussion in the first meeting, which is recorded and online. So if you want to listen to the entire presentation from the last time and the Q&A, that's all online right now. So I think we've answered most questions. We had one question left about budget. And so we do cost estimates in each phase of the project. We don't have a final cost of this project at this time. So we'll provide updates when that occurs. We're obviously still designing and looking at permit and restoration conditions. So I'll answer that question and then turn it over to Willow.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you all so much for your great questions. Hopefully you have all seen that our team has been furiously typing away to answer your questions over the chat. And Albert, I know you had another question about sinkholes, but I think that question got answered in your follow-up question. So if not, please do type an additional question if you didn't get the answer that you needed. So I think at this point, I'm going to give a little breathing room just to make sure. Oh, great. Thank you, Albert. Just responded. And so if anybody else has any more questions, I think we've answered everything thus far, but I want to give just another minute of breath just to make sure that people were able to type and get their questions in. I feel like we need musical interludes for our pauses.
I should say while you're thinking about this, we will have a temporary project coming up. You will be getting advance notice of that, and you'll see notice at the trailhead. So when we have to do the work for this, I think we're expecting August, you will be hearing from me. So stay tuned on that. We'll make sure that you have a chance to get information about what's going on and updates.
Awesome. Thank you, Monica. I think we do have one more question, actually a couple more questions. Let me just see here.
So I can address actually both of these. This is Monica. And then Jacob, if you want to weigh in on the second one. So the this does not, our projects
Monica,
are funded
sorry, Monica, I'm just going to interrupt you for just 1 second. I'm going to repeat the question just for folks so they know what you're answering. So if final costs have not been determined, how do we know if the taxpayers will have the funds? So I guess, how do we know that there'll be enough revenue coming in to fund the project if the budget hasn't been determined?
Okay, so the way we do this, we are really we're a regional wastewater provider, and so quite a large organization. And so it's not taxes that pay for this. So that's a valid question. You pay sewer rates to City of Bellevue, and you'll see a line item for King County. And so that's the funds that go to the regional system, right? So you're paying your local carrier and the regional. And what we do is we appropriate funds for projects. You know, we plan them years in advance. These can take 8 to 12 years to get executed, and they are priorities. And so we appropriate the funds and make sure that we're budgeting looking ahead because of the length of these projects. The county does a good job of identifying where appropriate when we can get low interest loans, grants, and things like that to help with the funding. So we will continue to pay sewer rates. The sewer rates, we have a budget for operations and for capital projects. So we know that this project, because it's approved, will move ahead. And then Jacob, did you want to answer the question about the plans?
I can say that as we're in development with what our plans are.
Jacob, I'm so sorry. I'm going to interrupt you one more time. Yeah. I just want to make sure that we're repeating the questions for our interpreters. So when will plans of the actual stream restoration, bank stabilization, and habitat restoration be released?
So as we apply for permits, we will have more detailed plans So if anybody is interested in seeing those, I think it's something that either through the permit application process, I know, for example, the City of Bellevue tends to be able to publish a lot of project details, and we will be applying for land use permits with City of Bellevue. There's an opportunity to review and provide comments on the city's process, as well as state and federal agencies. I'd say the best plan for anybody who wants to see additional details on restoration plans would be to contact Monica. She can make sure that you get in touch with the appropriate person. It might be me, it might not.
Great, thank you so much, Jacob. And I think, I'm just checking here to make sure. So we have, there was a question about providing a website address for SEPA comments, and Monica just shared an answer. A website address on this slide has been, sorry, Monica, do you mind just saying that out loud?
Not at all, not a problem. So the web, you can go to the Coal Creek Sewer web, and on that page we have this link to the environmental documents. So WTD's environmental documents for all projects live on a page. That link is on the front page of our project. So you can go to the Coal Creek Sewer. Like I said, that's usually one-stop shopping for everything, and then go to that link to the environmental documents. We also have the contact information for Grace Smith if you need a mailed copy. And I should mention for everybody, we're obviously online and digital, but we're glad to mail out copies of anything if you need that. And so Grace can mail out copies of the environmental docs at this time.
Great, thank you, Monica. All right, I'm going to give another just moment of another moment to let folks type any further questions that they might have. Okay. I think we might be okay. I think hopefully we have answered all of your questions, and do remember that we will be producing a meeting summary with all of the answers to your questions captured in that. We've also recorded this meeting today, and we'll be posting that on the website. That same website that Monica just referenced, it's up on the screen right now. We will be sharing all of this information there. So definitely stay up to date with that information. Reach out to us if you have questions or further questions. And I think other than that, we are wrapping up a little bit early. Monica, I think you have one last thing to share.
Do I?
Oh, sorry.
No, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for bearing with us. It's difficult to do outreach during a time like this, but these are really essential projects and very, very critical that we have to keep moving along. As Liz described our problem statement, we need capacity in this pipe. So we are trying to work with you as best we can to make sure that you're up to date and have opportunities to participate. So thank you very much for taking the time and bearing with us. I know this isn't everybody's favorite mode of interacting, but it definitely, we appreciate your participation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Monica, and thank you everyone so much. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and maybe soak up a little bit of this nice warm weather. So thank you again.